And pause that. There we go. It's Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. I'm Rim.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, Rumble Nation, the board game. Do we have any good opening bit? I got some lame stuff.
Opening bit?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do fucking nothing this weekend. I walked around a lot and bought pillows.
Last weekend I did stuff. This weekend was my laze about weekend, mostly.
Next weekend I got 4 days of lazing about.
Oh yeah, the holiday.
I'm gonna take Friday and work from home, and then Monday there's no work, and I got no plan whatsoever.
Yeah. I might see about skiing on Monday. Could talk about. I know. I got an opening bit. So you might have heard me many times on Geek Nights. There's two things that Rim always says. One of them is something about like skeletons and the network time protocol, maybe the fixed protocol. And the other thing is don't run marathons. They're bad for you.
Well, time.gov got updated.
Yeah, that's a Monday news, though. I can't spoil that.
Okay.
But time.gov did get updated, and I will just point out, a lot of you pointed this out to me. I think I still have a reputation, despite having not touched an NTP demon in like 8 years.
Yeah, but if you had to.
I haven't had to. I don't care anymore.
If you had to, though.
If I had to?
Do you think there would be anyone at your company more qualified?
I hope that there is someone at my company who is using something more precise like PTP for the kinds of synchronization that need to happen. But I am beyond the level. Like, I don't log into servers. I don't even know the host names.
I'm just saying, though.
Yeah. But so I ended up putting myself in the lottery for the New York Marathon because I figure I'll run one. I'll run exactly one marathon. I've never run a marathon before. I'll run one, get an okay time, and then I can say I've done it, and I'll go back to running more reasonable distances like 13 to 16 miles, which is what I do on a regular basis.
What if you don't survive that one, though?
I feel like I can survive the one, but
I'll do this extremely dangerous thing one time. Oh, that was it.
Yeah, but it's more like skiing. Like, yeah, I've done like Double Black Scary Glade, but I've also seen ski trails.
Rim, you should just do all those people who do marathons. They cheat, cutting corners and taking subways. Yeah, cheat and cross the line first.
Oh, I could wear the cheating shoes.
See what happens if. Well, I mean, you could do that too, but just see what happens if you cross the line first ahead of like all the actual professionals.
The problem is the professionals, like, even if I run at my sprinting pace
and on the subway.
Yeah, but I've got to get to the subway.
Hide in some building near the finish line. I know where the finish line is.
Yep. I
can like bike. I can give you my bike, and then I can use the subway and catch up and get the bike, and then you can go to the finish line.
I think a better way to go is we need someone who looks like me to be hanging out near the finish line and slip in at the last minute. I disappear at one point.
So the way the marathon works is I've biked along the route is they have these digital checkpoints.
Yep.
So it's like you have to get to each point, and they'll know how much time was between each point. So if you
skip one, you're disqualified.
Right, you have to go to all of them.
Or they'll use video evidence.
And it would be pretty hard to really take a major detour because you would either take too long because you have to make the checkpoint, and if you go two checkpoints real fast, that's not gonna work. Right, you have to have a reasonable.
Oh, Rim! It seems here that you ran 98 miles an hour on this.
Exactly,
split.
You have to have a reasonable time between the spots.
Yeah.
So what I think you got to do, right, is you need to have somebody who was like quintuplets or some shit, right? And you can
do a relay,
right? And you throw the thing to each other.
Yeah, well, you relay it, and you just quietly slip out of the race because I can run real fast for like 5 miles. I just can't run real fast.
Right, so one person runs 5 miles.
26 miles.
Someone else takes the subway, gets in front of them, right? Takes a rest, waits for them to show up. You pass off the thing. The next person starts going. They're fresh, right? The next person's taking a break, riding on the subway, having a drink.
Nope.
You get out in front of the first person, right? You wait for that. And if you have 2 people, that's a little hard still because you still have to run a half marathon. But if you start getting 3-4 people, right? Now we're talking.
Thing is, I can easily, with no effort, I can run a half marathon in about an hour 45.
Right, but I'm saying we need someone to do it at world record pace.
Yeah.
which is why we need 4 or 5 people.
Nor like a skilled adult, like the time people shoot for is like 4-ish hours. Like a little over 4 hours is pretty damn good for anyone. So I'm shooting for like a 4:45 because I've never run a marathon before. So we'll see how that goes.
I can bike it in less than 4 hours easily.
I can rollerblade it pretty quick.
Takes like one or two.
But so to put this in perspective, I run a half marathon, which is literally 13 miles, half of a real marathon, in an hour and 45 minutes. The course record for the New York Marathon for a man, this guy Jeffrey Mutai, is 2 hours and 5 minutes. So they're running almost twice as fast as me.
All right, so I biked faster than that guy ran.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so we'll see. So many people sign up. There's a lottery, or you have to like run in other races and qualify.
I don't know why you need a lottery. They close the road, and that you look on the pictures, and it's just a mob. So it's like
that mob is a tiny
not
subset of the number of people who want to run in it. Good Lord.
Just let everyone do it.
There's not enough room. There's not enough logistic support.
Just do it in waves.
No.
Do it
they already do it in waves. They do it in a ton of waves.
Just keep waving.
Nah, they just shut it down.
Do it all day.
They also cut you off if you're going too slow, and there is a way to get in without doing the lottery. You have to run
money.
a half marathon on a real race under a certain time. And I thought, well, I have a really good half marathon time. I wonder how much you have to shave
You have
off.
to be professional pace.
I'm not that far off, but I would have to shave like 20-ish minutes off of my halftime.
Yeah, you have to be professional pace.
I'm currently reducing about a couple minutes a year is how much I'm making that time faster.
Are you decreasing from being old?
So funnily, while my short distance times are getting worse as I get old, my long distance times are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I'm getting better at longer distances.
Eventually, everything will get worse.
Oh yeah, eventually everything. Eventually, I'm just going to be a skeleton. The race will start, and my skeleton just falls over.
You always see old people doing the race, though. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah, my goal is to be like that 98-year-old skeleton-looking dude running in the middle of the winter at like 5 a.m. in Central Park.
You do that.
You can be the usher at a Mets game, and I'll be
right.
the skeleton man in the park.
That's right.
So in the news, speaking of skeleton men, this is kind of great. So if you don't know, Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto with horses in the Wild West, has an online mode, and people play it like it's a thing. But hackers keep fucking with it because it's not that secure because it doesn't matter that much. And apparently the hack that's been happening
it's not
lately,
competitive.
No.
As far as I'm aware.
It's just go hang out in this world and be a cowboy. Do stuff with horses. So people have just been dropping these really aggressive, terrifying two-headed skeletons into the game, and if they see a PC, they run toward them as fast as possible and proceed to aggressively beat them to death, making scary noises.
If you're a strong character, though, couldn't you just kill it?
No, they're invincible to bullets. They're basically like almost impossible to kill, and they will fuck you up, and they're scaring people.
Can you hit it with something?
Yeah, so the advice on this Kotaku article is like, if one of these is coming after you, the best thing to do is to hog tie it. And if you succeed at that, just drop it in a lake or something and leave it there.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll follow you to the ends of the earth.
All right.
This is my kind of hack. I want to see someone hack weirdly aggressive skeletons into other multiplayer games where they don't belong.
Well, this
That's my
reminds
mission
me
to you.
of an idea I had a long time ago, which is to make an MMO that is Terminator universe.
Oh, and you gotta hack it?
But in the horrible future where it's like apocalyptic and they're hiding in the
you're pay $1 to get a life?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you die, you die, and you're all working together co-op to try to beat Skynet. But when you go out, it's like, all right, I'm gonna leave this cave and try to go and see what's out there, and it'll be sort of Fallout-y, right? I imagine, right? And you go out there, and it's like, yeah, if a fucking Terminator sees you, you're in deep fucking shit. The same kind of deep shit you are, probably even worse deep shit than if the skeleton sees you, right? That would be the forced co-op, would be like, yeah, you would have to work together. Otherwise, if you see literally... Because remember, there's that very brief scene that I'm obsessed with from Terminator 2, where it shows like the 1,000 killers or whatever.
Yep.
Right? With the giant triangle treads and the big like Doom-style Gatling gun arms or whatever. It's like, yeah, I want to play a game where you walk around and one of those sees you and then you're tiny Gibbs everywhere. Right?
It's basically Dark Souls, but with guns and co-op.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got any news?
I got no news going on, but it's 2 GeekBites of 2 extremely similar games with different aesthetics, and one of them you can get on your mobile device, and one of them you can get on your PC. and one of them has, the aesthetics are both good. One of them is programmed much better, though, than the other.
Oh, this 1-bit one looks real good.
Yeah.
Looks up my alley, too.
So there's one game they're both RTS games, and one game is called Death Crown, and it recently had a free DLC adding a human campaign, because the default campaign is you're the skeleton evil people, or evil looking, even though the king of humans looks like an evil version of
the
king
CDX
from
Zelda.
Yes, it's like CDI Zelda crossed with like Denethor. And then the other one is called Neon something. What's it called?
It is called
Neonimo. So the way these RTS games work is, the problem with a lot of RTS games that I have is I'm slow, old, and I can't click too fast. So I always want to play something like StarCraft where clicking fast doesn't make you win. So the way both of these games solve that is effectively, in order to do a thing, to build more onto the board, you have to, there's like little countdown timers, sort of like, your cooldowns on your abilities in a MOBA. Right?
Ah.
So it's sort of like in Neonimo, you have a timer that's spitting out Tetris pieces. You have a timer that's spitting out lightning bolts, and every time you get a lightning bolt, you can put a Tetris piece on the board as long as at least one square of it is adjacent to your existing network. And you have swords, and every time a sword fills up, you can put a piece. You need a lightning bolt to put the piece anyway, but with a lightning bolt and a sword, you can put a piece that is literally on top of an enemy piece, and it would destroy anything that's on top of.
All right.
So you have these 3 timers building up, right? And you use them and put stuff on the board, conquering space. If any piece that you place touches the enemy base, which is just a permanent thing in the corner, you immediately win.
All right.
And some of the maps have stuff on the board, and if you're adjacent to it, you get it, and it gives you an ability. And also, there are 3 buildings you can build. You can build those buildings infinitely and freely, but you can only build them where they fit. So it's like one of them is a 2x4. So that means you have to fill in an entire 2x4 space with your tetrominoes in order to then put that building on top of your own stuff, right? And it could always, if someone comes in with a sword and takes away even 1 square, the building's gone, right?
This looks pretty good.
So that's Neonimo. And the thing about Neonimo that I like is you play it, I recommend playing on an iPad against a human. Against the computer is kind of meh. Right? Against a human, because you can put the iPad down on the table and sit on one side of it each and both play together in real time. And I think that's the ideal here. So Death Crown is very similar, right? Is you have 3 buildings you can build. The tower building, which is sort of like a defensive thing that also gets you some territory and it shoots at incoming bad guys. A castle, which you put a castle and then you click and drag from the castle to draw a path. Well, it makes the shortest path between the hex you draw to, and basically mobs will march from the castle at a regular rate, attacking all the enemies in the path, right, until they reach their destination. And then you can build the farm, and the farm increases your currency regeneration rate, and all 3 of the buildings cost currency to place. Right? So it's this very, very similar. You have a hex map, and you're waiting for the currency to build up, and you put a building. You wait for the currency to build up, you put a building. So being faster doesn't help you. It's just choosing the order of what to put and in which hex to put it. And for castles, you have to choose where to draw the line, and you can actually you can move the line around whenever you want.
I like how I see both mouse cursors on the map at the same time.
Yes, because Death Crown, in addition to being this RTS where you can play against the computer, has... I don't know if it has versus mode, but they heavily push their co-op mode.
Oh.
Where you would, you and another person would both be on the same side, working to defeat, I guess, the PC-controlled enemy. Right? Maybe you both have your own castle, or you both have your separate currency piles. And the aesthetic of Death Crown is excellent.
I'm into this for the aesthetic alone.
Yes, of course you are. Look at that skeleton. These games aren't perfect by any means. They both have Neon City crashed a lot. Neonimo, not Neon City.
And it's I assume it's Apple device only right now.
I don't know. It costs $3.
Yep, it says it's only on the App Store.
Okay. And Death Crown costs more than that, but it's on PC. I got an itch.io. You can get it on Steam. But yeah, the problem with Death Crown is that it gets super annoyingly hard, and against the computer by yourself. The computer can still go super, super fast and semi-cheat, because if it couldn't cheat or didn't have any advantages, you would just win. So it's like you beat all the missions I play against it where it's on even footing. I just destroy the computer because I'm smart. But when the harder missions you get later in the game, it's like, okay, now the computer has this crazy building, and halfway through the battle, it just like obliterates your territory and makes a bunch of hexes you can't build on. And it's like, all right, well, it cheats basically. So fuck this. Why am I even bothering? Right? It's like I played the fun part. I'm good. But it's cheap and it's quick. I basically played all there was to play in a very brief period of time.
Not bad.
And I didn't feel disappointed, even though I got to cheaty parts.
I'm into it. I will poke at this game.
I actually beat the cheaty parts in the first campaign, but in the new DLC campaign, I did not beat the cheaty parts.
We'll see if it sucks me in like Advance Wars or Wargroove did, where I beat everything.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's much less. It's much simpler, right? It's like one game. All you do is put Tetrominoes on a board.
Yep.
And the other game, all you do is choose one of 3 buildings to build whenever you have enough currency to do so. That's all you do. You do almost nothing else. It's like pared down to this absolute minimum thing while still being sort of really unique and interesting, because there pretty much aren't any games that I've seen like these except for these 2 games.
Well, that is in general, like the games that get us going the most are the ones that are like either a perfect expression of their craft, like hyper polished, or the ones that are distilled down to the core essence of something unique.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what gets us going. Elegance and simplicity. So yeah, I will try Death Crown, and it looks like I can't play the other one.
We can play it after the show. It'll take 5 seconds.
Yeah. All right. In some other news, I saw an interesting headline, so I wanted to see what the deal was. And the headline was, why the Paris Overwatch League team is based out of New Jersey this season.
Is there a New Jersey team?
So
the New York team, I know, doesn't play in New Jersey. They play in New York.
Yeah, like all good people do. But Paris Eternal seems to be the only team. They're still going to play their home
What about
game.
the London team?
Well, who cares about the London team? Because we'll get to that in a second. Spitfire. Okay. So basically, Paris Eternal is going to play their home game still in Paris, like they would. Like they want their fan base in Paris.
But if New York has to play at Paris, New York and Paris are going to get on a flight to Paris?
Think so.
Okay.
But
seems wasteful.
I mean, look what they were. Well, so the reason they're doing this is actually very interesting, and it's a problem that is kind of unique to eSports in their nascent form. Basically, the Overwatch League team in Paris wants to scrimmage and practice with the other teams. Almost every Overwatch League team is in North America, except for like the handful of them that are in mainland China.
Mm-hmm.
So between and like other parts of Asia, there's basically the Asia set and the North American set. And then there's only 2 European teams, London Spitfire and Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal is a competitor. They're like number 5 in the league right now. Like they're doing fine. London Spitfire, dead last in the league.
Oh, okay.
So the Paris team just wants to be able to practice with other teams.
This is interesting,
that are good.
Right? Because think about it.
Yeah, the Rangers don't just practice with like the Red Wings,
right? There's preseason games where they would semi-practice, but they're not even putting out their best players, right? When you're a professional sports team, right? That's professional. You practice against yourself, right? Your own team, right? So if you're a hockey team, it's like, okay, we'll just put our first line out there with 1 goalie against their second line with the backup goalie. And 2 defensemen on each side. There you go. Top 4 defensemen. We can practice against ourselves at ice hockey. We don't need, to practice against some other team, right? And if you are, let's say, I don't know, a professional boxer, right? You're not practicing against the person you're going to fight. You hire people, right, to spar with you, right? That's their job. If you're a professional football team, right, you have a practice squad. It's literally a really good job, actually. If you're on the NFL practice squad, you make surprising amount of money, even though no one knows who the hell you are. There's a chance you could end up on the real team if enough people get hurt or there's no one better than you to go get. And that's a real job. Like, you're on the practice squad, and during football season, your job is to help the team practice and play against the real players. And then you just don't go, and you're not in the real games. You're not on the team. You just have you sort of help, right? So why the ping?
I mean, I have a lot of ideas as to why.
The ping thing is understandable, but why are these teams practicing against each other?
I think it's pretty simple.
Why not have just, if you're the Paris team, go and find the second best team of Overwatch people in Paris and practice against them?
I think the problem is
Blizzard, in fact, runs the league. They should be able to help you out by looking at Blizzard, players.
This problem happens in almost all
France.
esports, though. The
Right,
problem
they should be able to look at the Blizzard,
No,
users
no.
and say who's the best 5 players in France that aren't on this team.
No, because most of those best players aren't actually members of like specific teams you could practice against.
They don't have to. They can just be people.
No,
Just find
that's
the best.
worthless practice for this at this level of play. You need to practice against a team that's acting as a complete unit. That's the
Right,
only
I'm
thing they
saying
need to
find
practice.
the 5 best people they can, or how it's 5 people, right? Find the best people you can find who live in France who are playing Overwatch by looking at the Overwatch competitive rankings, and then hire them and
So-
make them work as a team as your practice opponent.
First off, it's 6, not 5.
Oh,
And
okay.
2,
what do I know?
uh,
Find the 6 best people.
there aren't like the people who are good enough at Overwatch to compete with the people in the Pro League. There's still a pretty wide gulf, and there aren't that many great players out there.
So there's not just a low supply.
And I think that is the case with most truly
So pretty
competitive
much,
esports.
so anyone who's good enough to compete against is on a team,
Pretty much.
right? But that's the thing is, like, even the NFL, the people on the practice team obviously are not as good as the people on the real team, but they still get valuable practice from them.
Yep, and I
Right?
think they do that too. I think it's just that there is definitely a culture of playing, and it's not just Overwatch League, it's other esports too, of doing scrimmages and like practice games with other
Well, those are
teams in your
that's
league.
a preseason thing, but that shouldn't be your practice.
Yeah, but
Maybe what they need to do is like, all right, so are you telling me, so it's 6 people, right? Are you telling me that the Paris, what are they called?
Eternal.
The Paris Eternal are only 6 people?
I don't know what the backup roster is, because honestly, while I watch the games, I don't pay much attention to the players.
I feel like if you simply just had a requirement that you have to have 12 people, then there's your people to practice against.
I don't know if there's 12 great Overwatch players in they could
But
get to
every
move to
team
Paris.
has to have 12 people, so if you just said this is the number of people that
Yep.
will be in the league, then yeah, teams are going to have a bottom, everyone has a bottom line, right? You got people
I
down
think it's
there.
partly too, though, that unlike, say, football, like American football, the variety of skills that are required among all the players, it's hard to find people who can change up a team, a 6-unit like team strategy on the fly, because the backup players and all those like lower tier
Right.
players aren't going to have like the dedicated coaches
Right. Well,
that the main players
I think
have.
that's the thing is you need, a developmental league, right, where you can make good players. There's no support, right? The developmental league for pretty much all esports is kid gets good at the game at home on his own.
Yeah, we need more.
Right?
We need the
And then
NCAA.
when
we
you
need
reach-
high school teams.
Right,
We
when
need-
you reach a certain level of play, they have been doing great support for college play. I think there's across the board. I think esports has done a lot of focus on
partly
college
we're
play.
we're just in the very early days of this.
But I think that the caring about the college play is extremely low, except for people at the college.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I literally will not watch anyone except the actual Overwatch League.
Yeah, you
play
never see
Overwatch.
college esports getting a lot of views on streams. At least I haven't seen it. But I think the people at the colleges I have seen caring about their team if it's good.
No, if RIT had an Overwatch team and
We would have cared about it at the time.
Yep, if RIT had a Tribes 2 team, I would have tried to join it.
RIT does have an Overwatch team now.
Tribes 2.
Do you care about it at all?
Because I'm not there.
Right.
So no.
Exactly.
Were I there, I might care.
But anyway,
But also,
the point is
here's
there's no developmental leagues. Development is like get good enough on your own, and then maybe someone will find you, right? And
Though
we
there is
need
another interesting thing
developmental
here.
leagues to produce people to practice with.
what would professional sports look like if cross-team practice was actually a part of that culture from day one? Like, what if half the baseball
There
teams...
is a little bit of cross.
But what if there were more? Like, what if that was part of it?
Not much.
I'm saying esports, because it is a relatively new thing and it's sort of a green field or a blue ocean, depending how you want to look at it, they could theoretically try like very different cultural practices. It'd be interesting to see how a sport will evolve if the players on the teams like practice cross-team regularly, and that's just part of what they
a
do.
lot less secret keeping.
Exactly. Then there's no more like, I saw they've got a secret strat.
Also because the preseason in esports isn't like going to damage your body like in hockey or football.
Yeah.
Their best players can play, and also because you don't have this sort of if they had the developmental league, right, it would be more like a baseball spring training where your people are trying out for the team, right, and you're seeing what minor leaguers can do, right, but they don't have people. They need to see what they can do, right, because there's no farm system at all.
Yep.
Right.
It's all kind of ad hoc.
So without the farm system, there's nothing else to do with those preseason games other than let the top people practice. They need that farm system and developmental league to get the people.
Which all this stuff will come. It's just
because you're not going to
esports-
solve the ping problem, right? This is the real solution, and it's a thing you need anyway
Yep.
for other reasons, and it happens to also solve your practice problem.
Yep. But also, like esports, real competition for most games still requires extreme low latency connections. All right. But anyway, things of the day. What do you got?
So there's been a lot of hubbub lately because Apple successfully, since the release of the original iPhone in 2007,
Aught 7?
13 years ago. Yeah,
I'm going to start saying aught again for the
Right,
OOs.
in Aught 7. They managed to kill Flash, and they pretty much succeeded. No one has Flash anymore. When's the last time you went to anything that required Flash or got the pop-up that said install Flash? Or
Only when I go to sites that broadcast certain sporting events without prior written consent.
I don't even need it for those.
Only the shitty ones.
Anyway, the point is, Flash is pretty much dead, basically. But even Adobe changed the name of Flash to like animate and something like that because you only pretty much use it now for making animations and not for making web
Entire websites.
embedded web things or entire yeah. So there's been a crazy rumble because people are like, oh shit. We want Flash to die. We don't really care, but there's a bajillion Flash games. This entire history of the internet from the late 90s through, the late 2000s.
Yep.
So like maybe 10 plus years worth of stuff.
And the stuff
And
is
it's
complicated.
an enormous amount of content, much of which was important and or revolutionary, right? Despite having its problems of being Flash and not being accessible, et cetera, et cetera.
I point you, for example, to Radiskull and Devil Doll.
All right, Homestar Runner. There's a wide variety of quality, right? But preserving it is historically important. We don't want to let it go. So somebody did manage to come to the rescue. Here is Blue Maxima's Flashpoint. What this is a thing you can download. And they took all the open source tools that they could get and they combined them together, sort of like Harmy's Star Wars, right? And they made basically a software that can run Flash, right? Equivalently, that's not Adobe Flash.
So you got your emulator now, just like you have
It's
for
an
your
open,
NES.
it's an open source Flash emulator sort of thing. And then they've gone around trying to collect as many Flash things as they could and then modifying their code to make all the things work properly. And so you download this and you will get 30,000 plus Flash games, 2,400 plus animations, and it runs on like all kinds of different platforms. You just got to compile, you might need to compile the code, who knows. But yeah, you can get this preserved library of the Flash things of the internet. It's not a perfect preservation because they're not like embedded in the web page as they were originally. It's more like, here is the tablet taken out of the ancient ruin and put on a stand in a museum kind of thing. But hey, it's way better than nothing.
It's important work.
Yeah, this is an important thing. And in case some sort of copyright thing comes down on this, download it today.
Yep,
And
kid.
preserve it on your NAS.
Because like some of these things, like people have made like YouTube videos of a lot of Flash experiences, but
that works for some things, but
not all things. Like even Homestar Runner, like there's a
all
lot of
those Homestar
interaction.
Runners animations were interactive to a small degree.
Yep. And this is very similar to that problem of how do you recreate the experience of an old MMO? Like how do you emulate?
Well, that's
like,
even worse than this.
Yeah.
But-
But I'm
But
glad
that's
they're-
another thing is some of these Flash things did have either online components to the MMO level, or they had online components just like high scoreboards or chats or these sorts of things, and those are obviously definitely completely gone. I even remember a lot of Flash experiences. For example, I remember one summer at RIT, I think we were in Colony maybe, and Nintendo had like a summer camp thing they did. It was like a special website you would sign up for and go to, and it was official Nintendo Biz. It was like, welcome to official Nintendo Summer Camp. There's all kinds of stuff in here, right? And, there are things like that happened in those days that have been not preserved in any way whatsoever. They're completely gone. Goodbye.
Camp Hyrule,
Older than
annual online virtual camp sponsored by Nintendo, first came to life in 1995.
that must have been it, yeah.
Yep. I think that was it. I don't remember this at all.
I only did it once, and there was definitely Flash involved.
Yeah, I
and
feel like
and chat rooms.
I feel like whatever this was, I either ignored you doing it or whatever. But I was not
I did
involved.
it for like a day.
Yeah.
I saw a post about it somewhere. I signed up for it. I did it for one day, and that was it.
No. So here's the thing. Most people know Penn and Teller like as they look today and like the magic they've done over the years. But I remember a very different Penn and Teller because as a kid, I remember watching either VHS tapes and sometimes live broadcasts of the early Penn and Teller stuff.
Well, I mean, that was a big thing. I mean, I don't know if it's still a thing because I don't watch television.
I used to watch a lot of magic performances on TV.
In the 80s, 90s.
Like David Copperfield.
Right, exactly. In the 80s, 90s, magic was was always there wouldn't be like regular magic TV shows like frequently.
But there'd be big specials.
There would be like these, that was the thing, like a special. A magician is going to do a special on TV, hour-long thing. David Copperfield's going to make a Statue of Liberty disappear.
Yep.
Well, it's going to be an hour-long special. He's going to fly. Penn and Teller they're going to do the drowning trick they did.
Yep.
And it's like they would come up with a new trick and they would do a TV special as like an advertisement for themselves and also as a TV show to sell ads. And it was like a fucking event because there was no internet.
So
and you didn't see magic like in your town frequently.
And like people would tape them and rewatch them, try to figure out how they did them. Everyone would be talking about them in school the next day.
Yep.
So this YouTube video is a compilation. It's like 27 minutes long of a lot of the early Penn and Teller stuff when they were on public access.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was Penn and Teller go public. It was on Channel 4 in like 1986.
Where? If it's public access, it had a location.
Yeah, or it might have been public television. I'm not 100% sure because I don't remember how TV worked. Like, I was not fully sentient back then.
All right.
But I know they also did a lot of stuff for, like, telethons for public TV and all sorts of, like, weird nonsense.
Telethons. You always have, like, a magician come out and do, like, one trick
Yep.
at a telethon, right?
I remember watching telethons as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember especially watching the one telethon that was also a charity auction because every now and then, nerdy shit would come up in the telethon.
Brian Swords of York.
Usually just
We're
swords.
never going to be able to think about a telethon again without thinking about Brian Swords of York.
They're
who's still around.
They're
and apparently
certainly
is a okay dude.
certainly enjoying themselves. In the better moment, we're going to be live at PAX East, which is not yet sold out and occurs in 16 days. 15 days, 15 hours, 6 minutes, and 55 seconds, give or take. All the badges are available. I don't know if it's because they're selling more badges or because literally every hotel in the stupid city of Boston is sold out and people just can't get hotel rooms. But PAX East is huge. We will be there. We're doing one panel. Take your fucking turn. We flagged it as 13 plus, so we're going to say the word fuck a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a good time. Otherwise, when we're not enforcing, we'll just be playing games.
If you're not going to PAX East, you can see that panel on YouTube already.
Yep, it's already on our website.
If you are going to PAX East, you can just not go to that panel and watch it out on YouTube instead, and it's with your time. Do something else at PAX East.
However, if you have a friend who perhaps needs to see Take Your Fucking Turn because perhaps they need to take their
Make
fucking
them watch
turn,
it on YouTube.
No, you should tell them that they have to go to our panel, and then they'll waste an hour seeing our panel, and at the end, we're going to tell everyone, you could have watched this whole thing on YouTube, and they'll feel slighted for having wasted their hour, and that's your tiny revenge, and maybe they'll take their turn faster.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's other stuff coming up, but we don't have any major conventions until I'll probably be at Kineticon. We got PAX West coming up in September.
Yeah, the book club book is
The Tale of Genji.
I'm reading it on the train as I planned.
Yep. I've mentioned my thoughts on Genji, but I got to get further in before I decide if I actually like Genji or not. So far, if I list all the characters I like or care about at all, Genji is not on that list. Characters that I barely I have to look back and figure out what their name is. I'm more invested in.
Genji's brother-in-law,
Yeah.
Genji's cousin, Genji's mom's uncle, sister.
Yep. And I want to see how this whole right versus left thing goes.
Yeah.
I was reading a Wikipedia on the details of what that
I didn't even
meant.
try to understand it.
Yeah, it's I don't understand it enough to explain it to you now, but I read a Wikipedia article on it, and
it might help me when I'm watching I keep watching samurai movies and there's emperors and shoguns and shit, and that doesn't seem to come into it, but maybe I'm just missing it.
Yeah, the Shogun stuff would be way later.
Okay.
So speaking of
Maybe
that,
that's why.
we played a game, at I think I played it with Emily and a couple other people at PAX Unplugged in first
I saw
look.
it in first look at PAX Unplugged, and then Matt, the enforcer, put it into the library for PAX East. But then I was like, hey, that game we played at PAX Unplugged, I got it, and he played it, and he's like, oh, and he put it back into first look.
Yeah.
After he saw that it was good. So this game, Rumble Nation, what was the Japanese name again?
Oh God, we got Emily to help us with this. 'cause
Tenka something?
it's complicated, but like the meaning of the name of this.
Oh, Tenka
game.
Meido.
Yeah.
So if
you paste it into Google, it'll be like world sounds.
right. So apparently Tenka means like everything under the heavens, and Meido can mean like sort
They're
of
rumbling, ringing cadences.
like sort of like a sound plus a shaking plus kind of. So you understand why they use the Rumble Nation as a valid translation, but I guess the original Japanese meaning is more is
Rumble
not
Nation.
not as corny.
Yeah, Rumble Nation is a very corny name in English.
It's like they translated it kind. You could see. Oh, I could see why you translated it as that. But the feeling of those words, despite having a similar meaning, is way off.
I feel like we should just call it the upheaval of all the lands under heaven.
Sure, we could call it that. So this game is actually not a complicated or long game.
This game takes 5 minutes to learn how to play from reading the rules,
Right.
4 minutes to teach to anyone if you've read those rules,
Yep.
and maybe 20 minutes to play.
Right,
If someone is super slow,
Right, the
it might take
complexity
30
of this game
minutes.
is like the complexity of like Suro, that kind of level, but +1.
But in terms of like the meat of like the strategy of the game, it's like a super condensed and extremely tight El Grande.
Oh yeah.
Like distill El Grande down to its like fundamental essence, and then add one really clever mechanic and then one really clever twist.
Right, you're getting a lot of game in a small space and being like, wow, it's not a lot of game compared to games that are actually a lot of game. But for the amount of time I spent on it and the complexity of the rules, I really got a lot out of this. And
I don't get tired of it.
not right. Well, I think if the replay value could run out. Right?
It could.
I think if you played this a lot, you might go meh. But if you use this, I think as your warm-up game, as opposed to something really, a lot of people warm up with something super simple, like maybe like a 6 Nymph.
Yep.
And it's like, this will get you, ramped up more than a 6 Nymph.
Yeah, this one, and I guess what I like about it is that it is good enough to be your primary game, but it's so fast that
It's good enough to be your primary game when you're playing with less powerful gamers.
Yep. Or if you don't have a lot of time, or if you're craving the brain feel of a game like El Grande, but you don't want to spend an hour and 10 minutes, you want to spend 15 minutes.
Or you want to get the brain feel of like the kind of game that you could only play if you had a bunch of nerds around, but you don't have a bunch of nerds around. Maybe you want to get like, your siblings to play this and they're not super hardcore, right? Maybe you could get them to play this and get some of the brain feel you like, but also they could play it.
Yep. And the game, we talked about at the very beginning of the show, like elegance, and that's what we like in game design. This is one of the most elegant board games I have ever seen.
Perfect. So here's how the game works. You got a map, right? And it's pretty simple. You want to have, we randomly put numbers in all the spaces.
Yep.
And that's how many points each space is worth. So
And they're 2 through 12. It's 2d6.
Right. So there's your replay value right there. Is that every time you play, different spaces on the map are worth different amount of points. Obviously, the spot that's worth 12 is the best. The spot that's worth 2, who cares? And then whoever has the most dudes in each space wins the points for that space. GG. Right?
Yep. Colonel Blotto game. You're putting like
Get the
little
most
armies
dudes
out.
in the spots, and some spots are better than others. Now, here's how it works. You can't just put your fucking dudes wherever you want.
Yep. This is the clever mechanic.
Now, you roll 3d6, right, on every turn. And then you pick one of the d6s that you rolled to tell you how many dudes you're going to put out. So let's say I roll a 1, a 2, and a 3. I could put 1 dude out, I could put 2 dudes out, or I could put 3 dudes out.
No, that's not. You're off a little bit.
I'm off a little bit?
A 1 or a 2 lets you put
Oh, right.
one out.
It's the number divided by 2.
Round it up.
All right, so I roll a 1, a 3, and a 6. I could put 1, 2, or 3 dudes out because you got to divide the d6 by 2.
Yep.
Right. You can't put more than 3 dudes out at once. Anyway, the other 2 dice that you leave behind, right? So I rolled what? I said a 1, a 3, and a 6.
Yep.
So if I decide to put 1 dude out with the 1, that dude is going to go in spot number 9 because the 3 plus 6 is 9.
It's
if I wanna
Settlers placement.
if I want to put 2 dudes out, they're right, that I have to use the number 3 dice to get my 2 dudes. Those 2 dudes are going to go in spot number 7. And if I want to put dudes, I want to put 3 dudes on the board.
It's going into
right?
4.
It's going into 4. So not only does this give you an interesting decision, but also luck each turn of 3 possible moves.
And you can do a reroll, but you only get 1. If you reroll and your roll sucks, well, that sucks.
Right. It limits your choices. So you're not sitting there thinking like super hard on your turn because you've only got 3 options.
Yep.
Right? You're not analysis paralysis yourself to death there with all your choices.
It also forces you to be a little tactical. Like you might be stuck doing something that feels suboptimal. So now you might have to base like your strategy for the rest of the game on what you've already done.
But this mechanic is also genius in that it is easy to put lots of dudes on the spots that aren't worth a lot of points.
Yep.
And it's hard to put a lot of dudes on the spots that aren't
like wherever the 7 is,
right.
anyone can just be
so
throwing armies down there.
Let's say I get lucky. I get to put dudes on the 12. You already have to roll 2 6s, right? So I rolled 2 out of the 3 dice that I roll. 2 or 6s. I can finally put dudes on the 12 spot, the most valuable spot on the board, right? So almost no one can ever put dudes there. Because how often is someone in the game going to roll 2 6s out of 3d6 in the same roll? And then
my 299 and Gone Shern Clever is just staring at me from the abyss.
And then that third D is going to determine how many dudes I get to put on the 12. So it's like, all right, I'm definitely going on the 12. I'm using both of my 6s to go there, right? But my third dice is a 2, so I can only put 1 dude on the 12. Instead of doing that, I could have put 3 dudes on like the 7 or the 8 or whatever it came out to.
And you got a pile of armies, so their turns are real quick. Like just go.
Yeah,
go.
you keep going until you put all your dudes on the board. Obviously, putting your dudes on the board last means that you have more information on your turn. So whoever puts all their dudes on the board first gets a slight advantage, and in terms of tie breaking. And then also there are these cards that you can do that are just there's some cards face up next to the board.
So these cards are very similar also to the El Grande cards. They do very simple things. There'll be 4.
Move 2 dudes on who are already on the board.
Yep.
Remove some dudes that are already on the board.
They all have fun names like take a prisoner or whatever, but it's literally like take a dude that's in a place that's not one of yours and move it to another place where you have dudes.
Right. So if you have 3 players, there's N+1 cards face up next to the board.
There's a big deck of them, but you
where
just
N
flip
is the
up a
number
few.
where N is the number of players.
And you never refresh them, and every player can use up to 1 ever.
Right. So
and once you use it,
so
no one
over
else
the
can
course
use it
of the whole
ever.
game, right, on 1 turn and 1 turn only, you can just say, you know what, I'm gonna use a card on this turn instead of rolling the dice.
Yep.
And you use a card and you do what the card says instead of the dice.
No one else can ever use that card. You can never use the card again, and that's it. So it's just
the rest of the game, you're going to be rolling 3d6 and choosing one of your 3 options.
And it's interesting to see, like, sometimes I've seen people, like, make decisions based on what cards are available, but they don't want to commit to taking one because then someone else could take another one.
Right.
I've seen games where everyone blows their load on their cards right away.
Yeah. So now here's the final thing about this game that makes it so great.
The twist.
Everyone's finally put all their dudes on the board using this 3d6, choose 2 for location, 1 for number of dudes.
You may or
mechanic.
may not have used a card, and eventually everything's set. The game is over.
Every player has put all their dudes on the board. Now you start scoring. You look at the number 2 spot.
You score in
Wherever
order.
that happens to be, you start at the lowest one, the 2 spot.
Yep.
Right? The cheapest, worthless, it's only 2 victory points. And you say, who's got the most dudes in the 2 spot? It was Rim. He's got the most dudes in the 2 spot.
2 points. Whoop-dee.
Rim gets the 2 points. Congratulations. But every space that is adjacent to the 2 spot, right, where Rim has at least 1 dude already, will now get reinforcements from the conquered 2 spot.
Yep, general supply.
Right.
So if I win the 2, and the 2 is next to, say, the 4 and the 3, or maybe the 12.
Yep.
And I have at least 1 army hanging
if
out.
you don't have any dudes in those adjacent spots, then you don't get any reinforcements, right? But if you do have at least 1 dude in the adjacent spot, you're getting reinforcements.
So you might want to win the 2 because it's in the, like on this map I'm looking at on the screen right now, the 2 is in the middle of and adjacent to 5, 6, and 12.
It has 3 adjacencies, so you could get a ton of reinforcements.
And this cascades. So if you win the 2, you put some armies in the 3 that's next to it. If you win the 3, you keep putting armies out.
Right. So if, like, let's say the 7 and the 8 are both adjacent to the 12, and you win the 7, it cascades into the 8 and the 12.
Yup.
And then you win the 8, it because you got the reinforcements from the 7, that will cascade even more reinforcements into the 12.
So
assuming
it's
you have
not-
at least one guy in the 12.
So
which
you've gotta
means
keep all-
you had to put at least one in the 12 via dice or card at some point in the game. Otherwise, nothing.
So you got to keep all this in mind while you're playing, and the combination of 4 random cards come up, rolling the 3d6 every turn, and the placement, much like in Settlers when you just randomly put the tokens out instead of following a pattern. That's why the game has so much replay value. You can't come into this with a set strategy.
No. You got to play the dice that you roll and just make the optimal move each turn. But you also need to have, in order to make that optimal move, you need to have the vision to see how the board will score with all these reinforcements that do not appear at all until the end game.
Yep.
Right? And so you got to be like, okay, you can look at the board and it looks like you're really weak somewhere. He's only got one guy. It's like there are like 6 reinforcements probably coming into that spot. They're adjacent. They're winning 3 adjacent spots to that.
Yep.
And you have to be able to visualize that end game cascade every turn when you're making your decision about, I guess not in the early turns, but in the late turns where it matters more. You need to be able to visualize the cascade to make your decision about where to put your guys.
So the other minor mechanic that's worth mentioning is that it has a tie-breaking system, so there's never a tie.
Well, like I said, whoever puts all their dudes on the board first, therefore made their moves with less information available.
Yep, ties break toward them.
Ties break towards them, so you're not heavily punished and there are a lot of ties because there aren't that many dudes.
Yep.
And there are a lot of spaces. So you're not heavily punished for just getting all your dudes on the board quick, not stupidly quick, right? But more quickly than the other players, because the other players will be able to make, if they're going like 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, they're getting better decisions and more optimally placing their dudes.
But
so they shouldn't have a tie if they're doing so slowly.
To make up for that, and what makes it what makes this all very balanced is that as soon as one player is done and takes that first tiebreak marker, no one can ever play a card again.
Yep.
Cards are just out of the game.
You got to play your card before. So if you haven't played a card and you see somebody's running low on dudes, the most dudes anyone can put at once is 3.
Yep.
Right? So if someone has 3 or less dudes, or 4, close to 3, like 4, 5, or 6 dudes left, then you might want to play a card real soon before they eliminate cards from an option you can use.
But this game, I would say it's something that if you regularly attend conventions or play board games, it's almost a must-buy just because it's so quick.
It's
so
also
elegant.
really small. You can fit this game in a very tiny space, especially if you rebox it.
Yeah.
It's just a map and a bag of cubes and a little deck of cards.
In fact, if you made the map out of cloth,
and 3d6.
you could make a map out of cloth for this and then just fit the whole thing in a tiny bag.
Oh, yeah. The map is way simple. You could easily make a functionally equivalent map that was not the same map.
And
right?
it's just, I was surprised how satisfying such a simple game is. This was the PAX, like I mentioned when we talked about PAX Unplugged.
It also goes up to, 4 or 5 players?
4.
4 players? That's pretty good for 4-player.
Yeah.
20-minute kind of game.
All right, I think it was a good show.